Half a century ago, the Spanish monarchy was restored. Yes, you heard that correctly. But why? Ever since the course of the 20th century, the number of European monarchies had been in decline. After World War II, the monarchies in Eastern Europe were abolished by the communists. Italy abolished its monarchy in 1946 and Greece did so in 1974. Greece ended its monarchy just as Spain restored one. Why Spain took back its king, you will learn right now. On November 20th, 1975, shortly before 5:30 in the morning, Francisco Franco passed away. In the preceding months, he had survived one heart attack after another, strokes and fever attacks, but thanks to a team of doctors, the 82-year-old dictator always managed to recover. With Franco's death, Spain was able to close a chapter that had begun in July 1936 with a bloody civil war and had resulted in an extremely harsh and cruel regime, especially in the first decades. What would the future without Franco look like? Would Spain remain a dictatorship? Would democracy finally come as it had in neighboring Portugal? Or would a country without an iron fist of El Caudillo fall into civil war? There are 12 monarchies in Europe today, including the 10 hereditary monarchies and 2 non-hereditary ones, Vatican City and Andorra. Back in 1914, on the eve of the First World War, the European monarchy map looked like this, with most countries being monarchies. Europe in 1914 was very different. Monarchy was still the default political system. It differed from how much power the monarch had. Countries like the United Kingdom and the Netherlands were constitutional and democratic, while countries like the German Empire were semi-democratic, in which the parliament was elected by men, but the Kaiser controlled the army and foreign policy. And then there was the Russian Empire, that was a Tsarist autocracy in which the Tsar Nicholas II ruled as an absolute monarch. The First World War was perhaps the greatest political earthquake in European history since the French Revolution. The war not only destroyed several ancient dynasties, it also transformed the surviving monarchies into democratic constitutional systems. Between 1917 and 1918, major monarchies in Europe fell in rapid succession. The February Revolution of 1917 overthrew Tsar Nicholas II, ending 3 centuries of Romanov rule. The war exposed Russia's backward economy and the Tsar's inability to manage modern warfare. In November 1918, with defeat inevitable and the military collapsing, Kaiser Wilhelm II fled into exile. The new republic was proclaimed before the armistice was even signed. The new republic was called the Weimar Republic. The multinational empire of Austro-Hungary disintegrated as Czechs, Slovaks, Poles, South Slavs, and others declared independence. Emperor Karl I relinquished power in 1918, marking the end of Habsburg's 600-year-old empire. Several monarchies survived the war and adapted to a new political environment based on parliamentary democracy and social reform. Ironically, the immediate post-war period saw the creation of a few new monarchies. In the newly independent states of Eastern Europe, such as Yugoslavia, Romania's enlarged kingdom, and the Kingdom of Hungary under Admiral Horthy, monarchy was seen as a stabilizing force amid revolutionary chaos. But these new or expanded monarchies were fragile, and many eventually collapsed during World War II or in its aftermath. In 1939, monarchies were already fewer than in 1914, but kings and queens still ruled across much of Europe. By 1945, the political map had shifted once more. Several small constitutional monarchies, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, Luxembourg, were occupied by Nazi Germany during World War II. Some monarchs fled into exile and emerged from the war as symbols of national resistance. Their moral authority actually grew during the war, helping these monarchies survive and often strengthen in the post-war democratic era. Belgium was an interesting example in which the king had to abdicate after the Second World War in favor of his son. Where monarchies were associated with authoritarianism or fascism, the war proved fatal. As was the case in Italy, King Victor Emmanuel III had enabled Mussolini's rise in 1922 and remained in place throughout fascist rule. Even though he eventually dismissed Mussolini in 1933, Italians saw the monarchy as complicit. In the 1946 referendum, Italians voted to abolish the monarchy, founding the Italian Republic. In Eastern Europe, monarchies found themselves trapped between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union during the war. In Romania, King Michael I attempted to resist fascist rule by overthrowing the pro-Nazi dictator Ion Antonescu in 1944, but after the war, Soviet-backed communists forced him to abdicate. The young Bulgarian Tsar Simeon II became head of state in 1933 after his father's death, but communist takeover in 1946 led to the monarchy's abolition. Spain has a rather unique history during the Second World War, as it fell not under Germany's control nor fully collaborated with the Axis powers. Yet its leader and the de facto dictator, Francisco Franco, was seen by many as fascistic. He had risen to power during the 1930s, during a brutal civil war. Spain was once a mighty colonial empire ruling almost all of Latin America. During the Napoleonic era, almost all Spanish-American countries became independent as a direct or indirect result of the Napoleonic invasions. Between 1810 and 1825, Spain lost its entire mainland empire, leaving only Cuba and Puerto Rico, which remained colonies until the end of the 19th century. By this time, Spain was a constitutional monarchy under the Restoration system established after the turbulent years of the First Republic and the Carlist Wars. In 1874, Alfonso XII returned to the throne, and after his early death, his son, Alfonso XIII, inherited the crown in 1886. A major blow to the monarchy came in 1898, when Spain lost its major remaining colonies, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines, in the Spanish-American War. During the 1910s and early 1920s, Spain became increasingly unstable. It struggled with economic inequality, rising labor unrest, and demands for political reform. By 1923, the country seemed on the brink of collapse. In this climate, General Miguel Primo de Rivera led a military coup with the tacit support of King Alfonso XIII. Primo de Rivera established a dictatorship that suspended the constitution and banned political parties. Promising to restore national order, his regime became increasingly unpopular as it struggled with economic difficulties, and thus he resigned. King Alfonso XIII went into exile in April 1931 after the Republican-backed candidates won the majority of votes in municipal elections, which was seen as a plebiscite of the monarchy. He chose to leave Spain voluntarily to avoid a civil war, and his departure led to the proclamation of the Second Spanish Republic. By the mid-1930s, political violence escalated as clashes between anarchists, communists, socialists, monarchists, and fascists became increasingly deadly. In 1936, the left-wing Popular Front won the elections, which further alarmed conservative and military sectors. Later that year, a group of generals, including Francisco Franco, launched a coup against the Republic. The coup failed to capture the entire country, triggering the Spanish Civil War, 1936-1939. During the conflict, monarchists supported the nationalist side, hoping a victorious Franco would eventually restore the crown. Franco, however, consolidated power for himself. By late 1936, he had become the leader of the nationalist factions, and after 3 years of brutal civil war, he established a dictatorship that lasted until his death in 1975. Although Franco later proclaimed Spain a kingdom, he ruled personally as caudillo, postponing the restoration of the monarchy for decades. Franco himself believed that he had arranged his succession down to the last detail. In his Christmas speech in 1967, he reassured the Spanish people. The monarchy, which had been abolished in 1931 by left-wing rebels, would be restored with the grandson of the exiled King Alfonso XIII as the new monarch. Juan Carlos de Bourbon had been brought to Spain by Franco in 1948 at the age of 10, where he was educated according to the nationalist, anti-democratic, and strictly Catholic principles that underpinned the Franco regime. In the 1960s, Juan Carlos appeared in public more and more often on holidays, usually side by side with Franco, but no one knew what this descendant of the House of Bourbon really thought. Franco had his right-hand man, Luis Carrero Blanco, in mind for the actual administration of the country. This highly conservative admiral had been performing numerous administrative tasks for years that Franco did not have the patience for. These plans went up in smoke, quite literally, on December 20th, 1973, when Carrero Blanco was blown up in his car in an attack claimed by the Basque terrorist movement, ETA. Deeply shaken, Franco then appointed the head of the intelligence services, Carlos Arias Navarro, as the person who would assist Juan Carlos in due course. This hardliner, who owned his nickname the Butcher of Malaga due to his brutal actions during the Civil War, seemed to guarantee the survival of the Franco regime. After Franco's death, Arias Navarro declared at his first cabinet meeting, "We have been called upon, and we are gathered here, to continue and maintain the enormous achievements of Francisco Franco." Although Spain had undergone significant economic and cultural changes over the previous 10 years and calls for liberalization and democratization were growing louder, there was little to suggest at the beginning of 1976 that the country would embark on a path to democracy. And yet, that is exactly what happened in that remarkable year. Ironically, it was Juan Carlos who had been molded and shaped by Franco himself, who would play a decisive role in this process. When he ascended the throne on November 22, 1975, at the age of 37, he realized better than anyone how weak his position was. The Bourbon monarchy had never been particularly popular, and with his appearance as a silent figure alongside Franco, Juan Carlos had won few hearts. Thanks to his marriage to Sofia of Greece, he had seen firsthand how the lack of support among the population had proved fatal to the Greek monarchy just the year before. In order to survive as king, Juan Carlos had put the Spanish monarchy on a modern democratic footing, with Great Britain and the Netherlands as serving examples. The price Spain paid for its successful transition was what became known as the Pact of Oblivion, El Pacto del Olvido, a tacit agreement between the old Francoist elites, the democratic parties, and civil society to let the past rest. There was widespread fear that otherwise old wounds would be reopened. In 1977, an amnesty law was passed, releasing all political prisoners and granting amnesty to perpetrators of human rights violations during the Franco years. Many statues and street names from that period were also retained, while the dictator was buried in the ostentatious Valle de los Caídos mausoleum built by an estimated 20,000 Republican political prisoners and war prisoners from the Spanish Civil War. Under pressure from a new generation, José Luis Zapatero's left-wing government passed the Historical Memory Law in 2007, which gave greater recognition to the victims of the Franco regime and allowed remnants from his period to be removed. In 2019, Franco's remains were removed from the mausoleum and reburied in the family tomb in Madrid. Have the ghosts of the Franco era been laid to rest or not? What do you think? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching.